This week's Boruto episode was surprisingly very emotional, and it's one that I can actually empathize with pretty heavily. And because most of it is mostly just looking more further into Kawaki's backstory, the imagery and the things that Kawaki had to go through when he was younger, when he was a kid, is actually something that, like I said, I can empathize pretty heavily with because basically the entirety of the episode is just him as a kid doing everything that his dad should be doing, which is, making money and supporting the child and this and that and blah blah blah. Throughout the entirety of the episode, he's basically just doing exactly what his dad should be doing, but him himself he's doing. Whereas his dad is just at home being a drunk and all this dumb shit that he shouldn't really be doing as the parent, and it's really messed up. And like I said, I can empathize with it pretty heavily because my life when I was younger was pretty similar in a couple different ways. It's not exactly the same, but it's one that I can relate to pretty heavily, and I actually got pretty emotional like about halfway through the episode because something happened to Kawaki in the flashback that kind of reminded me of how I viewed things when I was younger. And because the episode showed a lot of character moments about Kawaki when he was a kid, like his interest in goldfish and the fact that he really wanted a goldfish. I relate to that because I remember as a kid, I wanted things myself. Kids typically want things just for sentimental value, and for Kawaki, it was something as pure and simple as just wanting a goldfish, just wanting a pet, and that feeling of having responsibility over something else. And I can relate to that as a kid as well, and especially with the lifestyle that I had, I guess I feel like I didn't really have much responsibility, and I wasn't really given any because of the environment that I was in. And with Kawaki, it was pretty much the same way. And it was just really messed up. The fact that he had to basically make money and then spend the money to go buy booze for his dad is just it's a fucked up way of life, and no one should have to live like that. But the whole time he keeps trying to defend his dad because he has nowhere else to go. He has nowhere else. He's a child. He has nowhere else to go, and he can only rely on him for specific things that he can't really do himself. And then of course that's eventually where Jigen eventually ends up showing up, and he buys Kawaki for like a large sum of money, and then ends up eventually having to do what he set out to do with Kawaki by basically turning him into a living scientific ninja tool, and eventually being the vessel for Ishiki. So that's basically just the entirety of the episode. It's actually pretty emotional, and it's one that for a few people I feel like they can relate to pretty heavily, but I'm wanting to see more of Kawaki's development here on forward. I don't really see the point of seeing any more of his backstory and a life that he had to live, because there's not really much that you can do left with that. So let's see how he develops further on from this point forward. And it seems like we're going to be able to see a little bit more of that by a little bit of the ending of the episode and the entirety of the next episode, where Naruto in the previews is talking about how he's going to take him under custody and basically look after him and all this other stuff. There's conflict because of that, obviously, but we'll get to it whenever we get to it. So that's pretty much it. That's kind of the whole episode. I don't really have anything else to say other than it was pretty heavily emotional and it looked really good. And I think that, like I said, for some people, they can relate to it pretty heavily. So yeah, that's all I really have to say. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you want more, subscribe. I'll see you guys next one. Have a fantastic day. I'm out. Peace.